Welcome to memoQ Talks, where we talk to industry leaders about their experiences, lessons learned, and what works best across all areas of localization. Now here's your host.
Hey, Kevin. How are you today?
Hi, Mark. I'm doing good. How are you?
Awesome. Just getting started here. Are you in Luxembourg?
Yes, I am. Yeah. And it's sunny.
That's good. I was just going to ask you, what's new in Luxembourg? We never hear anything about Luxembourg, So tell me something that's going on in Luxembourg.
Some recent news. We are going probably to welcome the Bank of London, who they are going to open an office in Luxembourg. So there are things moving in the industry. Otherwise, it's a small, quiet country.
Yeah. I had the great opportunity to spend about a week there back in, I think it was 2017, and really loved it. I mean, beautiful city and a lot of history there, of course. And then the countryside also is quite very nice, so
it is.
Enjoyed it. Yeah. And so Bank of London, I'm assuming this is an opportunity for you because, we're going to be here talking about financial translation. I'm assuming this is the more banks, the better for you, right?
Of course. And potentially indeed, to be determined what their translation requirements are, of course. This is always good news for the country when there are investments like these.
I want to talk to you about the different types of financial translation in terms of content, but also in terms of documents and then processes. But before we do that, maybe you could just explain, why is Luxembourg such an attractive financial center?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So mainly because of thanks to the expertise that the country has managed to gather year after year. So, as you know, we have many of the big fours who have their offices here in Luxembourg, and that financial industry environment has really developed over the last few decades, and this has made Luxembourg a place to be in the finance industry.
So, in addition to the financial expertise, are there any tax or business benefits for being located there?
Yeah, absolutely. Although I'm not a tax expert,
Sure.
I could not comment extensively on this area. Yes, indeed, it is very favorable for funds to establish here in Luxembourg.
Excellent. So, before we dig into the, the different document types and so on, maybe, because a lot of people, they think that banks, they think of their local neighborhood bank. And from my experience, when it comes to translation, most of the content is not coming from your local neighborhood or commercial bank. It's coming from whether it's asset management or IB, investment banking, something like that. Yeah. Could you just kind of give a broad or high level overview of the different types of banks or departments in banks that you work with in the context of translation?
Yeah, so you're completely right, Mark. It's not the usual bank that you see around the corner. Mostly, at least, people who work with us are mostly asset managers. Sometimes private bankers, but where the translation need is biggest is the asset management industry. There is much less to translate in private banking because there's no requirement for translation of what we call the package, so the typical fund documentation that is regulated translation, typically PRIPS kids, prospectuses, fact sheets, all the documentation around investment funds. And recently, there's all the sustainable finance aspect that has become a big part of our business, of course, but it is also part of asset managers' concerns for the moment. Yeah, it is a lot of work because it's a tough regulation.
So when you talk about asset management, again, this is the fund prospectuses, and then the required documents around there.
Yeah.
So what, if we just kind of drill down on asset management for a while, maybe you can explain what are the documents that are required by law?
Yeah. So if you're a fund and you want to sell your product into, say, 10 countries in the EU, you will have to translate a certain number of documents into the languages, the official languages of those countries. And this is namely the PRIPS KID, because it's intended to retail investors. That is the main reason. The PRIPS KID gives basic information, essential information on the product that is being marketed. And then there is also another document which is less regulated in terms of translations. That's the prospectus. So that really depends on the country's requirements in terms of languages. I know that, for example, it's not the EU, but Switzerland, they used to require translation of the prospectus in either German or French, but now those documents can be filed in English. So that's less business for us, but it makes asset managers' lives easier indeed.
So, I haven't heard of the PRIPS KID before. So could you explain what that actually is?
The PRIPS KID, yeah. So it is to put it simply, a 3-page document. It can't be more or less than 3 pages. So you have roughly, it contains the investment objectives, the risks, of course, the basic information about the asset manager, the who to contact, who's the person, the entity to contact if there's questions or complaints about the product. I told you about the risk section. But this is all. This was all part of the UCITS KID as well previously, but now the template has changed and it includes more retail-oriented information than it used to.
When you say retail-oriented, are you talking about for consumers to actually read and understand?
Exactly. So, for example, how can I complain? This wasn't part of the UCITS KID. What happens if the fund is unable to pay out? All those things. That makes sense. Yeah.
And how does that document relate to, for example, KIDs? And then I'd like to touch on the SFDR requirements.
Yeah. So as I said, there was a transition from the UCITS KID to the PRIPS KID. So there's still the UCITS KID still exists, but for UK funds. So we almost have no translations for those anymore. What was your question, Ray?
Oh, and then it's like how did that relate to the KIDs, and then also SFDR requirements?
Yeah. So SFDR requirements has more to do with another type of document that I wanted to talk to you about. That's the pre-contractual template. So all the pre-contractual disclosures, so questions and answers about, to put it very simple, what is being done in terms of investment, about sustainability. So there's a lot of questions that are prescribed. There's, as I said, it's a template. Those are prescribed. There are official translations for those questions and for the fixed parts of the template. And the answers, they have to use a certain terminology, of course, the official terminology, but those are what we call narratives. And this is what we usually translate most of the time. And that's the biggest part of what we do. So you have the pre-contractual disclosures, you have the web disclosures. It's a sort of a simplified, a sort of summary of the pre-contractual disclosures. And now we are beginning to translate the periodic reports. It's as it says, periodic reporting on that manner. Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the challenges that I had when I was involved with leading a localization or translation company or organization is, you know, obviously you're always trying to get new clients, or customers. But then when you do, sometimes you need to get additional linguists or resources. And with the whole, vendor management process was tricky because a lot of linguists would apply and they would say they had multiple specialties, or they might just say finance. And as we just discussed, in finance, there are different types of translation, and they have different terminologies. They have different readability requirements. Maybe you can touch a little bit upon can you use the same translator? Let's say you're translating into French, and you just talked about a couple different document types. I think 3 different document types. Can you use the same translator for all 3? And how do you know? And maybe you can talk a little bit about how you or Peter&Clark go about selecting new linguists or training them and so on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So indeed, you're completely right. That was particularly a challenge end of last year and beginning of this year, because there was that big wave of translations for the PRIPS KIDs who were coming into force, and the as I said, the sustainable translation of the pre-contractual disclosures. Those translations came together. It was an unusually high volume of words to translate. And we got prepared for this. We have a vendor manager who did a great job recruiting new translators who were already specializing in finance and working on as I said, the package, so the UCITS kit, prospectuses, etc. And they had to train themselves on all the sustainable finance terminology, which was not completely new because sustainable SFDR is not new. There were already some wordings to translate and to include in prospectuses in the past years. So that gradually allows them to specialize into sustainable finance. So there was quite a big screening process to do, we fortunately we could count on our financial translators with which we have a great relationship, and they were really there to support that pike of demand. And we added others as well. We added new resources to our pool in order to get prepared for this. And since we didn't know them, we had to screen them and test them, and the usual process to get them really working on our top clients.
And SFDR, is that a requirement for the EU requirement that you have to go into all EU languages? Or I think is it 13 languages, or how many is it?
Oh, it's more than 20. I think is 25, 26, and then there's also Norwegian, Icelandic. Those are not EU languages, but they are. Those documents sometimes need to be translated in those languages, so the documents that need to be translated into as I said, the languages in which of the countries in which the product is being distributed are mainly the web disclosures, the PRIPS KID, that's it, because not the pre-contractual disclosures that are part of the prospectus. Those are limited to the languages of the prospectus.
Then when you are, I think with SFDR, they actually have some prescribed terminology or required terminology, right? So the linguist has to use that. You're nodding yes, so I'm just going to make that assumption. Then do you use any kind of terminology management system that enforces that terminology on the linguist?
Yeah. So there's different tools here. There's one very obvious way to put it is to make sure that the linguists are provided with the links to the published regulation, so that they have that manual approach, because the other way is to make alignments, which we did, but it doesn't prevent the manual research on the side and in parallel. So there's the alignment. We built translation memories, reference translation memories, containing all the prescribed wordings of those regulations. But it's not sufficient itself, because alignments work perfectly when the format of the text is the same. But when the format is different, then you get lower matching, and there's risk of deviating from the prescribed wordings. This is why the linguists need to be very professional and keep an eye on the regulation in parallel. And then, of course, there's the memoQ and, in general, term bases, glossaries, in which we extract the key terms. That's something our project managers and our vendor manager did in preparation of that big wave of translation.
Excellent. And from what I understand, one of the challenges with these SFDR documents or templates is actually, it's not the translation, it's actually working with the prescribed template, right? And getting the content into the appropriate format. Can you talk a little bit about some of those challenges?
Yeah. So this is first a challenge for our clients. The bigger the fund range, the bigger the prospectus, and the bigger the challenge. Because if you have a small fund range with a couple of funds, it is pretty acceptable to work manually to insert the text in the template and to work with Word documents, translate them, updating them manually. That is manageable. But when you have an 800-page prospectus with 400 pages of pre-contractual disclosures, that becomes less manageable, if I may put it like this. And therefore, most of our clients now work with a third party, which is a document manufacturer. That's the generic term. They produce the template in their system, and they just inject the narratives, and so they take also the questions, all the prescribed wordings from the regulations. They insert that in their systems. It's a sort of alignment, but in their system. And then their clients, our clients, feed the templates, the system with their answers, with the narratives, and their system is able to batch generate the documents. For example, for PRIPS kids, you can have more than 2,000 or 3,000 individual individual documents. So obviously, having 3,000 PDFs, converting them to Word, and processing them in a translation tool that doesn't make much sense. It's better to have a translatable document, an export from that third party's system, translate it, send it back to them, and then they generate the final products with some advanced rendering engines, and that is what's most efficient for our clients. Because of course we can take care of layout as well, but that is usually more costly for our clients when there's a big number of individual documents.
What seems to take more time, the translation or the actual layout and formatting?
Yeah, as I said, if we were to produce the layout of 3,000 individual documents, then definitely the layout.
Okay.
But yeah, since most of our clients are now working with those document manufacturers, that is, I don't say it's automatic. Those third parties have work to do on the templates, even when translated, but it's handled in a much more efficient way than the basic InDesign in Word format. Yeah.
And so when you're working with these document houses or manufacturers, do you somehow, how do you get the content to them? Is there any kind of automation involved, or is it just old fashioned? Here are the files. Here's the content.
Yeah. So there's different levels of automation. There's the absence of automation, the email, but still there is kind of an automation there, because those third parties generate translatable documents. For example, one XML file containing the missing translations contained in 3,000 PRIPS KIDs, and then that's only one file for us to generate to translate per language. So it makes things much easier and much more efficient than 3,000 individual documents. And those contents can be pushed to us, as I said, by email or by the first level of integration, the SFTP. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty basic file exchange method. But then you have also the API integrations. We have developed several with either with direct clients or with third parties in order to receive and deliver content automatically and avoid human interaction in sending the documents. Mm.
Okay. Hey, let me change things up a little bit here. And when new customers or either approach you or Peter&Clark, you reach out to them, what are the main questions that they're asking you?
Mm-hmm. How much will it cost? No,
some things never change, man.
No, but seriously, it was a challenge for our clients to evaluate the costs of the PRIPS kit, because of course there is some recycling from the usage kit, but not always as much as we thought. Mm-hmm. So it was a challenge for us to make estimations depending on the fund range and the number of languages. That was really the big question for our clients at the end of 2022. And nowadays, it's still a question for our clients who are intending to launch new funds, because they do not know to what extent the wordings from the other funds can be recycled, hence the translation memories, the magic of translation memories. So we can usually make good estimations if there's as soon as there's available material to translate, we can make good estimations. And that is usually the question: how much will it cost us how much time will it take to have those translations? Because there's a big impact for our clients if there is a delay in the production of those documents, because those documents are a requirement to sell the product in the countries, the target countries. Mm-hmm.
So let's assume that they haven't heard of Peter&Clark, though. I think that trust in your subject matter expertise, I'm sure it's important, right? And what do you say? And this is a way for me to invite you to kind of introduce Peter and Clark, but in terms of gaining their trust, what do you tell them about your background and your experience and so on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So our 25 years of existence and experience speaks for itself. It's indeed, we have always been in the financial industry. Peter and Clark was there before I started working, so as I said, 25 years now, and Luxembourg, it's a small world. Finance as well, and the financial translation even more. So you can quickly have a good or bad reputation, but when you work seriously and you have the right partners around you, and that even when you make mistakes, because that can always happen, the importance is to handle them as professionally as possible, and to deliver what the clients expect. And so they talk to each other, and they usually come back to us. And we keep having new clients, which is a very rewarding. We were able to assist many new clients during the big pike, December and January, for the PRIPS kit and the pre-contractual disclosures.
Yeah, that word of mouth is so important, and in introductions from colleagues or former colleagues and so on. And I also think that the subject matter expertise for people who are more generalists, whether they're translators or LSPs, or just small translation agencies, when you go in to talk with IB or investment bankers or asset managers, equity research, if you can speak their language and refer to the document types and so on and so forth, immediately you have credibility. And if you can ask smart questions about their processes and so on, you demonstrate your expertise. I'm wondering, do you have offices in any other financial centers?
Unfortunately not, or not yet. No, we are all here in Luxembourg, but you had a very good point, Mark. Knowing what you're talking about is very important, because of course there's the subject matter expertise of our linguists, but also our project managers, of course. Sure. They need to know what a client is talking about when they are talking about a registration matrix for prospectus or for a different kind of document. And of course, they needed to know what clients were talking about when they were throwing abbreviations to you, like the RTS, SFDR, PCD, PCT. So yeah, we had some internal trainings before that big wave of translations, so that our project managers could be confident and show that to our clients as well, that we knew what we were talking about. Yeah.
Excellent. I'm curious because when I was at CLS, a couple things. One is we had, as a company, a lot of in-house translators, and there was a reason for that. And I'll come back to that in a second. But the requirement, a lot of our customers had a lot of concerns around security. Now, and that would depend on the content type, though, because some content is very, very sensitive. If we talk about investment banking content or pitch books, things like that. And I'm wondering, in Luxembourg, do you get requests from other types of banks that do care and ask about security?
Of course, yes. We periodically run penetration tests. This is a requirement for our big clients. So to make sure that our system is compliant with their security requirements. So yeah, this is a key aspect of our software and hardware. and our system is secure. It has to be. This is why we also have a client portal on our system, allowing clients to upload their documents there instead of sharing them by email or worse, by WeTransfer. So that is very important, and this is a requirement for many clients. But there's different level of security requirements depending on the kind of document. We were mentioning PRIPSKIT. Those are, in theory, public documents, so that it's less sensitive. But for example, when you're talking about press releases for financial results, which are under embargo before being published, but they need to be translated before being published. Those are very sensitive documents, to be very careful with. And of course, everyone here has signed a non-disclosure agreement with the company, even our external translators. So this is, from a legal point of view, it is secured, and from a technology point of view, there's our system. Yeah.
So I thank you for that. And earlier I referenced that at CLS Communication, we had a large number of in-house translators, both in Switzerland, but I was running Asia. And even in Asia, we had a large number. And so I'm wondering, do you have any in-house translators, or is all your linguists external?
No. Turns out that our in-house project managers, most of the time, are translators. No, we don't work with in-house translators. This is the business model we chose already several years ago because we needed more flexibility. And of course, we are covering all possible languages, and that makes it difficult to have everyone in the office. But some of our competitors have in-house translators. It is true that it brings some comfort. If there's something you want to quickly review before sending, then you have someone available. But in terms of general flexibility, we preferred the full freelance model.
Yeah, I mean, that's always the challenge when you have in-house, is that you have to keep them busy. And and if the work slows down, you've got to find other things. We typically in APAC, we would typically have in-house for dedicated clients, where they'd say, we need these documents, this amount, but we don't want to send it out to a freelancer. And so we would either have an in-house translator on site in our office, or, for example, we were working with one Swiss bank. There are two big ones, and it was one of the big ones. And we had, I think, like 15 linguists working on site for them in Shanghai. And because they wanted that control, and they also wanted to be sharing the same platform. I'm curious, what do you see in terms of trends in the space that you're in? What are some future opportunities or challenges?
Yeah. So definitely, there's the big trend of AI and machine translation. Everyone's talking about it. And of course, we cannot close our eyes and pretend it's not happening. It will definitely be part of our strategy. It already is, because we have built in-house custom machine translation engines. We do not use them without client approval, of course, because there's some clients are still very reluctant to even the idea of using machine translation, even if it's, of course, post-edited by linguists.
And what is their concern with that?
Yeah, I think it's the usual, the idea that everything is Google Translate and all quality. But this is changing. I think people are now aware that those tools are getting better and better, especially those that we train with our specialized content, as I said. So you can train engines. So they use the financial jargon, the specific terms of a client. You can to speak about memoQ, you have those MT plugins which can integrate all kinds of resources like obviously translation memories, term bases, non-translatable lists, to avoid having DMT translating a fun name, which would be which wouldn't be great. So this is all already available. It's not AI. Machine translation is not AI. I think that, but it's maybe too early to tell. AI will definitely help us in our internal project management processes. It will help you select the fittest translator for a certain type of document. It will help the decision making, basically. But for the translation itself, we rely more on MT, the existing and evolving MT engines that we customize with specialized content.
And from where you sit, you have to kind of be looking forward. Do you look more at what's going on in the financial services industry or in what's going on with EU legislation? But you also have to look at technology. So how do you do that?
Yeah. So indeed, there's a lot of regulation information to process in order to anticipate future translation needs of our clients. So this is definitely part of our even commercial, our sales strategy, because you need to anticipate positive or negative changes in regulations. Speaking of negative, from our perspective, negative changes, you have in Switzerland a few years ago, you had that requirement to translate prospectuses in French or German that dropped. So those documents are now filed in English. So that's, if I may say so, lost business for us. But there are other opportunities like SFDR, which requires a lot of translations. And that the SFDR that sustainable finance aspect is really, really going to develop over the next years.
Great. Do you go to any translation industry events, or do you prefer finance or banking industry events?
We need to go to both. Yeah. Okay. So our team goes to those financial events, mostly our management. Sorry. But for example,
could you tell me which events?
Oh, mainly in Luxembourg, events organized by local agencies here, this is definitely needed in order to for the networking, but also to catch up with changes in the industry. But there's also trainings for project managers. I'm not sure if can I mention names.
Sure.
There's Ilya organizing what they call Focus PM sessions every once in a while, and whenever possible, of course, when I was a project manager, I went to Ilya conference on project management. Yeah, and our translators they also participate to translation sessions. There was recently, or it is to come, in Luxembourg, financial translation session organized by the SFT. So it's the Société Française des Traducteurs. So this is mainly for French-speaking translators. But that is also an interesting initiative because it shows that the translators they do things to keep up to date with the industry.
Awesome. Hey, I'm curious, do you because you guys are very, very focused and specialized, do you ever get requests and say, sorry, that's not our, we could find a translator and we could probably do this, but no. Do you ever have to turn down requests?
I don't think it happened more than once or twice since I'm here, and I've been here for 7 years already. But it's more related to the language pairs. I mean, if you have to translate from Finnish to Portuguese, that can sometimes be challenging. Not impossible, but but it can be, as you can imagine, challenging. So that could be a reason to turn down a job. But it's not a matter of having specialized people. It's more having the people working in those language pairs.
I can't imagine there are too many. Well, I don't want to make any assumptions, but there's not a large number, relatively speaking, of Finnish to Portuguese translators. So that's a good example.
It's also a challenge because there isn't many financial translators in Iceland. That is sometimes challenging. Mm-hmm.
So awesome. Well, hey, Kevin, really enjoyed talking with you. Give you one more chance here to talk about Peter&Clark. Mm-hmm. Anything that you'd like to announce about your company or talk about, what's going to be going on in the next 6 months or a year?
Yeah. So as I said, definitely, we are watching closely the developments in the sustainable finance industry because that is constantly changing. Even the templates are changing. So this is a challenge for our clients, and it can be stressful for them as well. So they need to be assured and know that they have professionals to count on. The other aspect is technology. As I said, developing integrations to further improve the processes and the time to market for our clients. And then still technology, MT, machine translation with post editing is very, very important because that is, I think, the future, and our linguists are gradually training on small funny fact: we are working on training for linguists on post editing. So we will make sessions, interviews with experienced post editors in order to convince linguists because as you may know, some translators can be reluctant to doing machine translation, post editing. But when the main aspects like profitability, quality, time to market, when all this is covered and they are reassured regarding this, they usually change their minds and go for it because that is the future. And people who say no to it will unfortunately have to adapt. Mm.
Yeah, it's interesting because I guess there's some kind of philosophical argument that I don't want to edit something from a machine, but I'll edit something from another translator. And the machine may be better quality or more accurate than the other human translator, because that there are good human translators and there are ones that are not so good, right? So yes. I guess that's a philosophical discussion that I, not being a linguist, probably can't fully grasp. I would like to say though that you bring up this whole thing about post editing, and we just concluded an integration with ModelFront, which is an AI driven MT quality predictor, which allows companies to say, you don't have to send everything to post editing because we can predict that 50% of it is actually good enough quality and accurate. And so you only need to send a smaller piece. And so that's, I think, obviously a really important trend that you're touching on right there. And, I guess we're just at a really interesting time where, people aren't sure about AI and we're afraid of it, but there are a lot of ways that it can help us. I mean, if I look at the stuff that we can do with our phones, I don't feel threatened by this. I feel that it makes me I don't know what, more efficient, I guess, when I'm not looking at stupid social media apps. But everything else, like maps and dictionaries and, the ability to call or text, whatever, it just makes me more efficient. And that's one of the trends that I'm getting at about AI. And I think, Slater has done some good articles about, future careers of being people who are AI prompt or chat GPT prompt experts, right? You have to learn how to use this tool to make you more effective. Yeah. And a couple of things that you said, training the post editors, but then also investing in training for your project managers through third parties is super important. Kevin, thank you so much for taking time I know it's the end of your day there and you probably just want to get home and relax, but really appreciate you spending some time here on memoQ Talks. Yeah. And I hope to cross paths with you in person one day soon. Sure.
Yeah. If you come over in Luxembourg one day, we'll have a chat and a coffee with pleasure. And thank you for this opportunity to talk about what Peter&Clark does and how we work on the challenges in the financial translation industry. It was a pleasure. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining memoQ Talks, where we talked with industry leaders about their experiences and lessons learned to gain new insights about what works best across all areas of localization. Join us next time on memoQ Talks.